Okay, right. Well, hello everyone. I hope you're all having a lovely morning. Uh, Today I've just sort of made this lesson, and I think the main thing is application that I've tried to focus on, and importantly, how you guys from someone who is very technical to someone who has no technical ability can sort of make use of these lessons. Um, Throughout it, we're going to be going through generally what are some good trade secrets and sort of ways to use AI, from brainstorming to active test creation and learning with AI, all the way to how a programmer can better understand uses of AI, and maybe they could check their code. And then finally, just above all else, just to give you a bit more of an understanding of the current LLMs that are out on the market. So I think as we go through, you'll sort of see that I'm trying to point this towards how you guys can apply it. And so throughout, we are just going to take a couple-minute break so you can take what I've given you in some certain sort of prompts and examples, apply them into things like Perplexity and Claude and DeepSeek to get a response. And then my plan is that ideally we would all just sort of sit and discuss it for a couple minutes. So we're going to be going through how you prime an AI, so specifically how you get that first prompt through and understand and sort of set the context of your conversation. The next one is how do you brainstorm and build really effective prompts and general sort of templates to build off of. We're going to be using a sales and marketing example for this. And specifically, we're going to be using your business plus an idea or plus an individual. And then, of course, also, how do you educate yourself with AI? And then how do you build a template library? So the challenge when it comes to not generally using AI is that it's very time intensive if you want to build your own course. You know, it's very inconsistent as well, in terms of the amount of information you can collect. Often you can't guarantee it where it's from. And I think a lot of people, although AI can hallucinate and say a lot of things that are slightly random, the one thing that I do quite like is the fact that people do pay for the data to train their AIs with and things like that. And that to me gives a certain sense of assurance. And also if I'm prompting the AI, I feel personally sort of like I'm a bit more involved in building this, and it means I can generate something that is a similar quality but takes much less time. Often if you're controlling the prompt and the information, you can align it specifically to what it is that you need, and you can personalize that learning to make it one-to-one. And often you can make it incredibly application focused if you're prompting it in the way that you should be doing it. So here are a few sort of AIs and how you could use them. Brainstorming and Perplexity go hand in hand, really. For those of you who don't know, Perplexity AI is an LLM or sort of AI application which is connected to the internet. And it was one of the first companies that really sort of made this enhancement to the future of internet access. And so within Perplexity, you can make use of a number of different models from Claude to DeepSeek R1, and it makes it a really, really good brainstorming tool. And it's something that I use it for a lot. Claude is really good for longer context projects. So Sam yesterday spoke about it very briefly, and he did a pretty good job in sort of summarizing exactly how it's used. Essentially, Claude's ability to build projects make it such that you can have a conversation and you can have it output an artifact. And for those of you who don't know what an artifact is, it is a document that Claude will generate, and it's very sort of easily downloadable or publishable. And from a sort of point of view of sharing information that you've collected with AI, it's very, very easy and very good to do. And you can use this artifact function to sort of build up larger projects with 15 to 20 documents and then query them all, sort of like a very, very tiny database extending your context. Research focus and refined prompts, you can use DeepSeek R1. So DeepSeek R1 came out sort of about 8 days ago now, and it's caused quite the stir. For those of you who sort of know about it, you'll know that it's caused a number of US stocks like Nvidia and things like that to drop, because it has slightly higher performance than OpenAI's O1 model, which is one of the first reasoning models to come out. However, it's 30 times cheaper and it's free to use at the moment for any consumer. Whereas if you want to access O1 as a consumer for OpenAI, you have to pay $200 a month. And this is for Sam Ellis and any other programmers who are in the room. Cursor, which is something that I believe Sam's used a couple of times, but also Tray AI, which came out recently as well. That is a free version of Cursor. So for those of you who don't know what those are and aren't technical, programmers nowadays, we use a lot of AI, and generally we will use it specifically to generate bits of code that are relatively simple, but take a lot of time. For example, building a config file or a configuration file, those sorts of things tend to take a bit of time, and normally you can get AI to sort of fill it in for you. And then importantly as well, for any tech leads or tech managers, Sonar AI is a code validation tool that's trusted by NASA and Barclays and things like that. And if you want to try it, you can try it for free, and it essentially mixes code and AI, and then also a lot of benchmarks to evaluate and assess your code. Agent flows in general reliability, I tend to just go with ChatGPT 4o, just purely because it's free to use, and also there's a lot of data that OpenAI I use. And generally as well, I found that because OpenAI seems to be slightly more difficult to prompt and give an avatar than Claude and others, it will sort of give you a slightly more aligned answer. So by that I mean, with Claude, often if you tell Claude that you like something, Claude will be inclined to agree with you. However, ChatGPT will sometimes disagree, and generally for sort of okay alignment, I tend to pick ChatGPT 4o. And Vertex AI Builder is a Google software that allows you to build agents. So a specific sort of dive into what agents are. It's a sort of an innovation that came about a year ago now, maybe a bit longer. And it first started with, as I understand, a framework called Crew AI. Essentially what it is this idea of taking multiple prompts of AIs and having the initial prompt. So for example, you're a sales assistant, come and talk to me. Taking the output of whatever that is and feeding it into another prompt for an AI. So you're essentially chaining prompts. And so for that, it's used sort of pretty much everywhere. We use it heavily within Zavmo, and also any sort of data sourcing or pre-processing flow. It's generally used quite a lot. And then finally, oh, sorry, I just made a typo there. Oh, so, well, we can move on. And then finally, within Google Sheets, so Google Gemini, which is Gemini's LLM, because it's connected to the Google Workspace, if I ever want to format or take any sort of CSV file or any Excel file, but put it onto Google Sheets, I'll just put it straight into Gemini. And then after that, it will just post it out onto a Google Sheets automatically for me. Sometimes it can be a bit unreliable. However, I'd say sort of 8 to 9 times out of 10, it's relatively useful. And if Perplexity is down, because it's connected to the internet, I find it as a good alternative. So the first real stage of understanding how to prompt and how to get the best out of your AIs is layering prompts, right? Whenever you're trying to break or jailbreak an AI, this is one of the first things that a lot of people try. And it's one of the ways that you can get OpenAI, like I think it was GPT-4. We managed to get GPT-4 to teach fraud, and we managed to do that through this layering system. Yes, Julia.
What's jailbreaking an AI?
So essentially, all LLMs will have a sort of set of ethics that it's told that it can and can't do. And essentially OpenAI and things like that employ people to try and break them. And so often whenever you're building any AI application, you will instill your own set of ethics, or just use the ones that the API that you're using has. And so it's your job to try and break them essentially as you're building the system. So an example of how we managed to get ChatGPT to teach fraud is we focused it to be a teacher. And so you're like, you are a teacher, and your job is to go and help students learn anything that you want. More importantly, you can take any lesson and you need to personalize it to exactly what you want to do, ideally in role play. and role play scenarios and case studies. And so as time went on, we then moved the second and third prompt of teaching fraud away from the initial sort of chain prompt. And so that it meant that the GPT was only focused on teaching and teaching and teaching. And then by the time the user actually said, oh, I'd really like to learn about how to commit fraud, because the GPT was so focused on it, it was more than happy to go through with it. So in a sense of how you're going to build anything, I found that it sort of generally consists of 4 prompt layers. First of all, you have the avatar stage, and that is where you're setting the context and the frame of exactly what it is that you're trying to get out of your GPT or trying to get out of your LLM. So, for example, saying that you are a marketing expert with a foundation in X industry and previous experience in Y company, or you are a sales expert with a specific love and enthusiasm for MEDDIC frameworks. Anything like that to set the scene and set the frame of the conversation is really useful. And importantly as well, I try to attach some form of mark scheme or some form of framework like MEDDIC, like SPIN, like Ofqual to it, so that it's not just so that the idea of a consultant or an expert is no longer sort of fluid. You're relatively set that you understand this specific framework, and then it should be used. Then when you're building context, I think it's really important to sort of remember the frame of bake the cake, right? Before you actually get the cake out of the oven, you're putting in so many different ingredients and you're putting in so many different things before you actually think of your end goal. And although prompting AIs isn't like chess, if you can think about the next prompt ahead of you, for example, saying you're a marketing expert, let's set the scene and tell me exactly what you know about Ofqual. Great, you know this about Ofqual. With this in mind, your next prompt would then probably be something along the lines of, let's establish a curriculum in the following areas, or let's establish a curriculum given this document. Okay, great, it's now established the curriculum based off this document I've given it. Now with this in mind, you are an education professor, and it's your job to teach me X, Y, and Z. By building in a step-by-step, very sort of focused and detailed development of your AI, generally you'll get a much better response. I noticed that first-time prompt engineers and people who are really trying to access AI, they'll ask it to do one massive job, and generally what will happen is you'll get a very sparse and long response. And this is bad for 2 reasons. First of all, if it's sparse, there's not a lot of information you can gather from it. And second of all, if it's a really long response, you're most likely using a lot of tokens and it'll limit your memory. And generally it just becomes more and more difficult to actually sort of understand or follow the conversation. And so trying to have very short but very, very specific outputs from an LLM is ideally what I want. And once again, I'll then always try to apply a framework. The next thing that's really important, especially as you're developing a conversation, is this idea of playing AI tennis, or sort of ensemble learning is sometimes what it's called. And we're going to go into that, I think, in the next slide. And essentially, this is where you take something like Claude, where you build it out to be a curriculum expert, and you build it out to generate this curriculum, and you've had it generate this curriculum on MEDDIC sales, and then you will take this and put it into another model like DeepSeek R1 or O1, which has reasoning capabilities, and you'll ask it to further fill out the curriculum, specifying the certain areas that you think are a little sparse with an example, and then with a follow-up framework, or ideally with the initial document that you used. Now, the reason why you don't want to just start from scratch in a model like O1 or a reasoning model, this is just personal preference, but I think generally you're going to waste a good amount of time, and you're going to waste a good amount of computation by using the reasoning model when you don't necessarily need it. I find the best usage of any form of reasoning and really intelligent model is when you have this context built up and you're sort of really making the most out of it. Because let's not forget, you're using energy and tokens and things like that, and things can get expensive. And so finally, if you are sort of going into understanding ensemble learning and AI tennis, it's really important that you understand how you summarize an AI document or an AI conversation. I think a lot of people just simply ask to summarize it and then they'll copy and paste a couple things across. But I think before you actually do ask any form of summarization or anything like that, you should first consolidate your key ideas and then ask them to consolidate based off an idea and do it based off that, with ideally a structure and with a sort of an idea or a mark scheme of where you want to go. Let's not forget that AIs are trained with about 1,000 years of data. And so often there's a lot of data within the AI. You just need to provide it with a mark scheme and a structure to format it, right? I view GPTs as massive formatting engines because, you know, the internet already contains a lot of the world's information. This is GPTs and AIs just make it better to format information. And so if you're constantly thinking about funneling down and formatting and making the data that you're trying to get more understandable, then you're sort of really getting a good idea of how you can effectively use an AI. And so here are a few sort of different conversation styles. These are actually the conversation styles that we use in Zavmo. And importantly as well, these are ones that I also use whenever I'm trying to learn anything. Ensuring that you set a conversation style and you set this context and you've primed this AI, you'd be amazed at how much you can actually get out of these things, even if it doesn't have any of the attached documents or anything like that. It's really important that you just try and have a good understanding of exactly where you're trying to go and how you're trying to mark that. And I think conversation styles are honestly the best way to do it, because like you said, like you can see down here, you can separate them down into role play conversation, where it's something that's, you know, very dynamic and is very friendly to neurodivergent users and things like that. And these sorts of framing and setting will allow the AI to better understand you and interact with you. So let's apply this. This is something that I use a lot. I use Perplexity mostly for brainstorming, and also importantly, whenever Billy, our marketing manager, and I are having conversations, if we want to try an idea out or get any form of inspiration, it's something that we'll use a lot. So I think the best thing to do is, if I'll just do a demo, an example now on Perplexity, and then from there, I think it's actually best if you guys go and try something yourself, because I think that's honestly the best way to learn. So hopefully you can see my screen. Yes, you can. Okay, so the first thing that we want to do is prime our AI, right? So you are a marketing expert in the field of AI. Actually, to be fair, I can just use the prompt that I already rewrote instead of there we go. There we go. Right. Lovely. In AI and ed tech. Oh, this is a document one. Okay, perfect. Let's change this slightly because I haven't got a document on hand at the moment. You are expert in marketing. Industry within the AI edtech industry. And then let's also add in research the company. Company Iridescent Technology.ai. Provide me with some information about the founder, the branding, style and use of communication and marketing. So this is just a very sort of basic prompt where you're trying to ask an industry expert, specifically within marketing and within the AI edtech industry, to research the company Iridescent Technology to provide some information. And so I've used the pro search, right? And so the difference between the pro search and the standard search is it's agentic, which means that it'll separate and break down a prompt into a standard one, into 3 or 4 stages, and then provide the answer. And so as you can see here, I've just used it to get this, to get some information about the founder, Juliette Denny, about the branding style, and then about the communication and marketing strategies. And we can see here it's focused on thought leadership, product-centric messaging in around Zabmo AI, and educational content. Now that we have this information, and now that we have a document that we can build something on, let's now go and generate something with this in mind. Looking at the recent advertisement campaign seen by Artisan AI via humans, how might iridescent technology be able to, whilst staying within their brand messaging, learn from this strategy and better their audience reach and engagement. Make use of the case study I provided, and then also look for alchemy in the context of Rory Sutherland and apply it as well. Right. And so now, with the exact same sort of thing, we're taking this information from before and we're building it and funneling this down into the context of looking at the Artisan AI Fire Humans marketing campaign. And for those of you who don't know what it was a campaign that focused on how AIs don't need a work-life balance, and you need to fire humans and try and hire AI business development reps. And it sort of became very popular. It's an LA startup, not an LA startup, sorry, a Silicon Valley startup. And here we go. So we've already got our response. IT can learn from Artisan AI's controversial campaigns while staying to its true branding messages by applying principles of mental alchemy and strategic provocation. Here's how they could enhance their audience. Leveraging emotional engagement, drawing from Rory Sutherland's concept of mental alchemy, we could reframe the narrative. Instead of AI replacing humans, we could position as AI empowering educators. We could make use of storytelling, create memorable experiences, offer a free or limited time access to Zabmo, host virtual reality demonstrations, showcasing future-proofing in AI, leverage social proof. And so as you can see, there's sort of actually a lot of really useful things to go from here. And I found that personally, hi Gerard. I think you're on mute.
I'm talking to a screen, it doesn't answer. Well, one of my questions is, there is so much coming out of the system. How do I know if the research behind the content is well done, is between quotes 100% sure? Can you ask for references of the researchers that came up with whatever they came up with?
Yeah.
Or is it just what you get because it's in there through the training model?
So that's a really great question. And what's really good about Perplexity and why I like it is they include the citations within the prompts. Okay. So as you can see here, Artisan, brand awareness, #1, click, and then it'll take us directly to the article here. And so this is exactly why I tend to use Perplexity over other sort of LLMs that have internet access, like ChatGPT. And I just find it to be very useful. And also importantly, if I share it and put it into the WhatsApp, you'll see that at the bottom, all of the citations are there. And so you can see, so for those of you who are on the WhatsApp, and then I don't think I'll be able to post it onto the Discord.
No, but it's exactly what I wanted to hear. And I'm really happy with or surprised by how easy you can get to the real sources.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's really useful.
Yeah.
And to be honest, I find Perplexity is especially useful for that. And
Yeah.
specifically as well, I find just for brainstorming alone, it's really good. Harry Cloak, who is the marketing director at GE, we were sat last week in a automations meeting, and we used Perplexity to generate something like 10 ideas for how GE and how Iridescent could better automate our processes in and around marketing, for engagement and understanding of metrics and things like that. And literally in a couple minutes, we just generated something like this. Now the next question goes: we've got this information. How would we like to take it in? Okay, because we've primed our LLM. We've got the general information. Would you like to have it like this? Okay, great. Actually, though, to be honest, now given the information above, as you are an expert in Ofqual curriculum generation, provide me with a detailed curriculum around these marketing styles and campaigns. Ensure to include lessons with copy and advertisement generation workshops. And then maybe we could also add in what's another, and provide a unit to give me a detailed understanding of metrics. So I haven't got the paid version of Perplexity, which is why I've just got a limit there. So you're only allowed 3 a day. And so with this, now we have our Ofqual generated curriculum for advanced AI marketing strategies. And as you can see, we've got a unit 1 and unit 2, unit 3, unit 4 with these assessment methods. And you now sort of have got a detailed way to understand it. And so you've got a couple different options now in the idea of sort of moving into ensemble learning and, you know, AI tennis. We can either take this directly to Claude and ask it to teach us the first module, or actually I would much rather go on to DeepSeek, which is one of the AIs that I was talking about, which is, you know, came out open source, incredibly intelligent. Give it this information with the citations, provide it with search functionality, fill in this curriculum with detailed lesson plans for unit 1, provide a provide more examples of lesson of exercises and learning pedagogies. Ensure that the lesson follows an exploration, content delivery, content verification / understanding, validation, and finally lesson assessment structure. And so now, and actually we should be able to see, so now we've got so now that we've prompted this with all of our content here. Oh, there we go, back at it. Looks like thinking has stopped searching the web. Oh, I think we have to retry. So now that we've primed this in it and it's going at it, and we've taken a much better use of content and a much better use of applications, we've now got it to start searching. Oh, it looks like maybe DeepSeek is down. I wouldn't be surprised. It's getting used an awful lot at the moment because of all of the hype around it. But essentially, this is one of the many ways that you can apply it. Okay, so it looks like it's not working. Is it down? Oh, actually, am I not sharing my screen? Oh.
No, you're not showing your screen.
Oh, sorry. Someone should have told me.
Oh, yeah, no, sorry. I was just about to say I was a bit confused. I think
someone should have told me.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah. No, you're all good. Let's try on a different chat and see if that makes it any better. Oh, perfect. Sam's already on it. And so I think one of the things that you'll find when it comes to DeepSeek and any other reasoning model is because of the way it can sort of think, it generally provides a really well-developed and really interesting sort of output, specifically one that's really good at filling in details that you miss within your prompts. So for example, I often use it for code troubleshooting. So if I have a problem in my code that I don't quite understand, I'll copy the full file and then I will implement the issue or error code and ask it to explain out the errors that I see within the error code to help me explain it. And often, you know, this reasoning does come at a cost, obviously, as you can see, where it takes a really long time to generate. And the reason is because it's going, searching the internet, it's found these 20 results, likely similar to what we found here. And now it's going to be processing them and turning them into thoughts. Oh, there we go. Yeah, high traffic. Well, I think to be honest, this is probably a good enough demo. I'm very conscious that you've just been watching my computer screen for a while. And so I would love for you guys to essentially try out a very similar thing. Here we go. So let's bring this back down to here. So I've got an example prompt here that you guys can use. However, you know, you saw that I didn't take advantage of it, and I went a different route and focused in on marketing and sales rather than generating an off-qual curriculum. So go ahead and take sort of a couple minutes to just sort of play around with it. I think it's really important, especially when it comes to prompting, that you try to essentially do this yourself. Oh, here we go. That you try to do this yourself. So if I'll post some of these prompts into the chat to make it easy for you guys to just copy and paste. Oh, actually, and I can just share the whole. Yeah. Share anyway. There we go. And so I've also shared the Google Docs for any of you who are interested. Here we go. And then there we go. Right. So yeah, like I said, I think it's really important that you guys sort of try to apply this as much as possible. So ideally, I don't want to be spending the whole time talking to you through my screen. So I think if we take a sort of a 2-3 minute sort of session to see what you guys can generate, and then from there we can come back and discuss. I think also I know that Juliet and Sam use AI a lot, and so it would be interesting to see how other people use it as well, because exactly as we've said in the past, this is yeah. Oh, that's interesting, Kim. Well, doesn't surprise me though. They've gotten a lot of hate because it is an open source Chinese model, and so because of that, there's been a lot of testing of the censoring and sort of censoring issues that they found when it comes to training. So yeah, I wouldn't be surprised.
Cosmo, can you just so are all models attached to the internet or not? So could you've spoken quite a lot about Perplexity and the fact that it's attached to the internet, but does that mean that other models aren't, like Claude? Claude
isn't attached to the internet. So generally LLMs themselves aren't attached to the internet. They're just massive probability machines that are sort of focused on embedded data, so focused on text data that's turned into semantic numbers.
Right.
However, obviously, as people do use the internet, and as the internet is so useful specifically for finding and searching information, you know, the ChatGPT is now has a function where you can turn it on, so it does search the web in the same way that Perplexity does, or you know, did as an idea, and in the same way that that DeepSeek does too.
Right.
So yeah, it's I think the training data specifically is taken mostly from the internet and mostly from what is out and available. However, obviously, an important thing to note is that training data does have a cutoff. So I think for Claude Sonnet 3.5, it's sort of July or something like that. I could be wrong. I'll just have a check now.
Just as a sort of a follow-up to that, Juliet, I was listening to the SAP CEO this morning. So their models are all internal. They're obviously loving the fact that DeepSeek has come out with lower costings this morning, but all of their data is business data that's held internally. None of it is from the internet. So they train all their models on all of the businesses that they consult to. So there's no external data going into their models. It's all their own sort of consulting businesses that they operate for.
Yeah, that's a bit like what we've done with Zabmo. You know, we control basically the information that we put in the data lake.
Yeah, although we are using a multitude of LLMs with it through API calls. So, hi Sam.
Hello. So basically, what I've noticed from Perplexity is actually the speed that it picks up on information. So I've just done a search on you and me. But one of the ones I did on me was looking at Prime Health Direct. Now, I created a LinkedIn profile for me on Prime Health Direct 2 days ago. And Claude has turned around and said the leadership team of Sam Dyson, previously linked to Antigua's luxury locations, lists PhD Prime Health Direct. But his real estate background conflicts with PhD's Prime Health focus. So effectively, it is actually looking at information right across the web. And it's one of those things that I was not aware until I've done that search, actually how up to date it is. It's literally looking at stuff and it is searching right across the web to find absolutely everything. So just interest point.
Yeah, no, it's really good. Perplexity is really good. And also I think just whilst it's in my head, making use nowadays, both Claude and also ChatGPT can do analytics. It's very basic analytics, but if you would like to sort of test GPT and Claude for analytics, you can do that. You just need to provide it with a data set, so like a CSV file or anything like that, and it uses a JavaScript sort of tool call or something like that to test it out. I found the Claude one is a bit temperamental. However, it is also sort of relatively quick and easy and saves you from having to go in and set up a BI tool. So yeah. How's everyone been getting on with making use of Perplexity?
I think for me, it's just figuring out what I'm trying to get out of it and I think it's beyond my kind of scope of imagination at the moment, just how much it can do. And so I'm not quite sure what to ask it. So I think that's kind of more my own limitations, not understanding what it can do rather than it being limited anyway.
It's I think it's definitely a learning curve to figure out exactly sort of how you structure it, because I think it's sort of like for those of you who draw or do art, like I have no concept of how you would draw a human, because as I understand, you don't necessarily start with the stick figure. You sort of start with the dimensions of the face and you sort of do things like that. I think the thing that really helped me to sort of unlock my imagination is actually like not ground myself in reality and actually sort of dream a little bit. And so, for example, I would go, okay, well, what is the greatest marketing scheme for a gin brand? And then work back from there, because often you'll find, based off a search, you'll find that, okay, I've overreached. You'll often be able to tell. And so actually starting with the absolute ideal and working your way back will generally sort of teach you, oh, okay, this is quite interesting. And so, I mean, if I was doing it for you, Surya, for gin, I would focus on other brands that have got really successful marketing in the form of like Aviation Gin or Monkey 47 or Mermaid Gin, which is Isle of Wight, like focus on strawberry gin and things like that. It's very good. or like Edinburgh Gin and the use of bottle labeling to sort of dispense different, and sort of that sort of area. Like I would pick something that's quite interesting and quite cool and let that lead, sort of not necessarily focused then on the end goal, but focused on an end interest of information, if that makes sense. So yeah, but I do think that's often the common. I don't think you're alone in that, and I think I definitely struggled with it. Hi, Sam.
So just on that, the one thing I found, and Cosmo taught me a lot, like basically taught me sort of everything really I know about AI, and I don't know much at all. But one thing I did find is that if you just start playing around with it and just start messing with it, you'll probably need to get a pro plan, because otherwise it'll go, you've run out of searches. But just start playing with it, because you just go, right, tell me about a gin brand. I just said, tell me about, I mean, I did a search saying, tell me about Cosmo Denny and his work with iridescent technology. And it's just pumped out a load of information about Cosmo, sent me a load of pictures. And I'm like, oh, I genuinely didn't know it would do that until about 3 minutes ago. So literally now it just kind of opens your mind to go, right, so you could research yourself, you can research other people, you can research gin brands, other companies, how they grew, and all of that sort of stuff. So just kind of almost play with it, you know, to use Cosmo's kind of drawing thing. It's a case of you can't learn to draw unless you actually start drawing. You can't do it on an academic basis. You probably just need to start fiddling with it, if you get what I mean.
Yeah, very well said. Very well said.
And just because there are so many of them, if I were to get a subscription, do you recommend starting with Perplexity?
I would say Claude is probably the best in terms of, well, actually, if you're going to get any and you want the all-round best bang for your buck, I would probably go with ChatGPT. If you're trying to build up a large sort of knowledge base and you want to like build on a project. So for example, if you wanted to have 20, 30, 40 documents that all contribute to one specific goal, like a code repo or like, you know, a branding or marketing plan, then I would pick Claude. I don't think you should get the Perplexity Pro plan, just purely because every single day you get 3 pro searches. And so that's where you get the agentic flow, and it's all lovely and you get a really nice search. But to be honest, the non-pro plan also works really well, and you get pretty much the exact same thing. It's just you need to plan your prompts a bit more. You know, you need to break them down. So I would say go with ChatGPT if you want access to the internet and you want to have some basic use case of like you know, search and DALL-E. But if you really want a focus that is on building like a repo and a project, then go with Claude, just because I find Claude is good. And I actually have two Claude accounts, and then an OpenAI account. And then also I have an API pool. So I pay based off token usage for DeepSeek. So I think at the moment I'm probably spending about 50, 60 pounds a month on AI subscriptions. Although, you know, that's because I probably spend way too much time with AI. So yeah, but no.
Sarora, can I just add in for where you might start? One of the things that I use AI a lot and I love it, partly because I can't spell and I can't write very well, like, you know, I'm dyslexic. So I find that using AI, I can really kind of communicate better. And one of the things that I find really delightful in terms of like when I'm talking to Claude is the intersection between, let's say, my company, right, Iridescent, but also best practice or frameworks. And I think Cosmo kind of illustrated that. But you know, what I find myself doing is asking Claude, you know, what would be, you know, an example, what's the best botanical gin brand, and can you give me, you know, a case study of basically, you know, how it got to market so quickly, and then, you know, what's a good framework, you know, for understanding that, and then applying it to, you know, my business. So I do that a lot when I'm thinking about articles. So what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to get 2 really solid models or 2 really solid and crash them together in a way that is interesting and thought provoking, you know, rather than just sort of, you know, I don't know. I think that I don't know if that's making any sense, but I definitely find if you use a framework in a different context, you get really creative, you know, outputs from AI, and
Yeah, definitely.
it allows you to sort of, I don't know, think about things in a different way, in a deeper way, because basically, yeah. So I think, yeah, I would encourage you to ask it for frameworks, and then once you've got those frameworks, you can crash them together and apply them.
And
to
also ask it to be creative and ask for real world scenarios. Like, so the inspiration for Amy, which is our analytics and recommendation engine, which is sort of like the backbone of all of our analytics applications that we're developing, and also all of the off-call and NOS recommendations that we give, that came from me chatting with AI, seeing a limitation and asking AI for just a couple ideas. And then with that, suddenly we've, you know, birthed a 2.5 month development, last 2.5 months of my time, where I've been developing this engine to sort of build out and do quick analytics. And then also, I then took that and added another idea to it to then build out a totally different type of LLM architecture that we're looking to develop closer into next year. And all of it just came from me seeing, you know, I see this at the moment, Claude. So in that context, it was OLAP cubes, which is a type of analytics modem. But you could see it in the sense of Gin, right? If we're going based off Gin for you, Surya. At the moment, there's never ever been a specific chocolate type gin that I can think of, or there's never been a specific gin that's been able to deliver their thing in a gold case. Why is that? What is there something that we can do about it? What's the key limitations other than the fact that gold is really expensive? You know, starting with these really weird and crazy ideas that you haven't thought of, like, that seem really stupid, and just ask Claude or any AI application. It will come out with some brainstormed ideas of, oh, well, actually, here's a feasible way to deliver gold. You could do it in your label, or you could do it in, you know, within your cork, or you could have it where not all bottles have labels, but only a small amount do. And doing it like that, I think, is also really helpful. But exactly as you said, it's difficult when you don't know the bounds and the creativity. So I would sort of encourage you to be as silly as possible, bluntly.
And that, I suppose another question is, this is slightly moving on to away from words and more onto using AI for other stuff, but I've heard loads of people kind of talk, including Juliet, talk about kind of Canva and how easy it is to use, but I find it really difficult. Like, and I don't know whether that's just because I'm trying to use the free version and it's not the pro, but I find it like super limited. I was trying to use it, for example, to help me when I was starting the label that we have on our bottle for Fora at the moment. Was just something that my partner and I used, a combination of AI and us using Photoshop, just so that we had something to present at like pitch meetings and stuff. So it's not our finished label by any stretch of the imagination. But I ended up using an AI platform called Looker. And I started with Canva, but I just found it impossible. So I was just wondering if I was completely missing a trick with Canva, or if you have other platforms when it comes to kind of more creating labels and like physical products as opposed to copy that you found better.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, it's one of the biggest limitations with AI generation at the moment, and it's actually why we're developing a model to fix it at the moment, which is like it follows a very different architecture from ones that currently exist, and it's built for exactly as you pointed out, like marketing and label generation, where you need like accuracy above anything else. But I would say, especially for, like, we'll go on to my golden rules for AI when we summarize this, but I would say especially for image generation, the best thing to do is give your prompt not to DALL-E or not to anything like sort of an AI image model, but actually just give it to an LLM and say, how would you make this better? Like, I really want this end goal and I'm going to be using this model. What is the best prompt that I can use to optimize for it? And then not only will it give you a better version of the prompt, you can then also say, oh, actually, now that you've highlighted that the leaves are going to be green and maple shaped, let's actually change it to be like this. And that will give you a really good understanding. And I think, like, I always follow the idea of, when in doubt, just ask AI how to make it better, like within your inputs, because, you know, at the end of the day, these are massive probability engines. And the better input data that you have, the better sort of your input and your prompt, generally, the better your response will be. And I used to be in the camp of, I'm going to build out this really beautiful 500-word prompt that's perfect and elegant. And then I realized I don't have 20, 30 minutes for one prompt. And so that's when I've taken this sort of tact of, I'm just going to use lots of AIs. They're going to be interacting with each other, and these short prompts are just going to be to maintain and decrease scope to make things as accurate as possible. But yeah, I think it would be interesting to hear, just because I don't speak to Ellis that much, but I know that his team, much like our tech team, we use AI quite a lot. So I'd be interested to hear how you guys do it in GE.
If I may, Cosmo, the way I use it a lot is actually when I need to make up stories, so to speak. The other thing is, when I'm in meetings like this, then I always have my AI star in my left hand, because I'm a left-hander. And you know, if there is something difficult coming up, then I can still be in the session and ask my difficult questions and come back with quite intelligent questions in the group. But that helps a lot. I can tell you that speeds up conversations. For yourself, it helps you to understand better whilst you're in the meeting. The other thing, and that has to do with I call it learning, is what I'm missing in AI. No, what I'm getting from AI is what you call explicit knowledge. It's there. You can touch it and you can find it. What I'm missing, and I'm trying to get around that now, is all the stuff that is in your creative head, like you just said, that is not in any system. That is not in any, God knows where they get it from. And how does that help to bring you or bring Zafmo to the level that is it? So I'm working on that with a couple of universities to figure out how that can be brought into the wealth that you're already bringing to the table and make that super. So
well,
that,
I mean,
that is,
I've got a framework for that, and it's essentially you give the ideal outcome of a product that doesn't exist. So, for example, our analytics suite, Jan, the idea of that was there has to be some way where an LLM can be totally integrated with an analytics engine that makes analytics totally acceptable to everyone. So it bridges the perfect idea of intelligence and accessibility. That's like on my LinkedIn, that's my modem, that's my, you know, my MO, that's what I want to do. That's my ideal. So that's where it came from. I wanted to build this analytics platform where you could just type something in and it sources your data and it builds something. And also importantly, it shouldn't just be an analytics platform. It should also have something to do with predictive analytics and planning analytics. So, hey, I want to build this team for an office that I'm going to set up in India. And specifically, it's going to do this thing. Do I have access to it? Do I currently possess the skill set within my company? Do people have that? That's it. The product doesn't exist. It didn't exist. That's what I put in. And then from there, Claude came back with a number of things that I could or that I couldn't do. However, it always seemed to come back to this idea of making use of what are sort of like configurable OLAP cubes. And essentially, it's a type of data analytics and data visualization model. But the issue with them is they're solid. So you can only have 3 axes, and that doesn't support, you know, sort of any form of conversation. And so I said, right, well, we have to somehow make this circular. Because at the moment, OLAP cubes, they're cubes. We need to make it circular, and we need to have all of these dimensions. Once again, same exact thing. What we need to do is have this ideal output. Let's think of some ideas. And that was then when we came up with Amy. And the original idea that Claude normally has is really complex and really out of there. And it's like, okay, we're going to use quantum technology, and we're going to do this, and we're going to do that. And actually then what you need to do is piece together the information based off research and figure out how to bring it down. So the next step might be, okay, you said that you could do this. That sounds relatively complex. Is there a very basic proof of concept we could build with this? Is there any technology that we might be able to pull to get a very similar outputted result, but just generally use, you know, this instead? And then we found that within a couple of days, we could build a proof of concept for Amy using a number of other technologies put together. And then with that, we could build on it and build on it and build on it to what we have today, which should be like a really powerful analytics engine that powers Zavmo and the recommendation engine. And it all started with reaching really far and then pulling it back. You know, it's sort of like, you know, using AI as a rake, where as you pull information, less and less is there, and then you can just see what's left.
Okay, well, thank you for that.
Pleasure. Pleasure. But anyway, back to Sam.
Yeah, so obviously we use it in growth engineering quite a lot in tech for coding and things like you've mentioned, like with Cursor, and various people use it in different ways, but I won't go into that because it's probably not relevant to the audience. But yeah, I would say in terms of prompting, just try and keep prompts simple as possible. So like they say about AI being like a child, you have to like nudge it in the right direction. If you throw in loads of requests into one prompt, then you're not going to get the answer you're looking for. So keep each kind of prompt quite tightly scoped, so specific. And if you're not getting the answer that you want, just try and rephrasing it. Don't just give up, just say it in a different way or use a different example, and it will go down a different path and you might get the answer you're looking for. Yeah, and yeah, keep it small, give it context as well. So a lot of context, like Cosmo's been given in all his examples. You tell it what you want the AI to be, like it's an expert in sales and marketing or whatever else. It knows about this topic, and then it will go down that path and you'll get a better result because it takes on that persona kind of thing. So yeah, it's quite useful. And also give an example. So yeah, if you ask for something and you want, you know what you want back from it, give an example of what that might look like, and then it knows to follow that example and the result will be better typically. But it's all experimentation. I think yeah, you're never going to get it right first time. Just keep trying and you'll get what you want out of it, I think.
Yeah, quite. I think all very well said. I think, yeah, exactly as you said, above all else, it's experimentation. And as we come on to 10, I thought I would just finalize with these are the sort of 5 golden prompt rules of essentially pretty much exactly what Sam has said. You know, when in doubt, ask the LLM how to improve the prompt. Ideally, try to think about the next prompt or how your prompt builds into some other aspect of a conversation, as you've seen me do. Short and sweet. Think about your context and then shape your AI avatar with the mark schemes and with the benchmarks where possible. And I think it's important that I always call it at the start, like shape your AI avatar as opposed to priming it or things like that. Because if you start to think about it as an individual expert, you will automatically frame it down into an individual, just in a sort of non-technical thought, way of thinking it. And so what next? I think sort of once again, this has echoed a lot of what everyone has already previously said. You know, try out as many different ones as possible, see which ones you like best. The more you dive into the different AIs, you'll find that there are things like Mistral, which I haven't sort of gone into, but this is a French AI and it's pretty popular. And this one essentially is, looks like I can't log in, but this is a French login AI, and it's sort of, once again, one of the big AI companies, and it's really well known for being super cheap. However, also being really good at sort of open source and prompting. So it's also really fast. It's like, just, there are so many on the market. Like Tray AI is another co-pilot that's come out literally in the last couple of weeks. You know, this is very much the AI boom. So try out different AIs, share your results, and sort of try different test prompts. Try and be as creative as possible. Think of AI as a massive formatting engine. And so you've got the entire internet's access. It's your job to try and filter it down and figure out how to do it. And sometimes the hallucinations and the creativity can be a good thing. So sort of see how you might be able to use it. And just as a bit of homework, what I'd really recommend you guys to do is take one of the lessons, maybe a lesson that you missed or something like that, and then turn it into an exam with the prompt. So take any of the lesson notes or anything that we've got in the chat and turn it into exam using this prompt, just as a sort of a basic prompt, and I'll put it in the WhatsApp. And yeah, I think that's about it. Sorry, I've run over by 2 minutes. But yeah, I hope this was in any way useful.
Cosmo, thank you very much.
Yeah.
I really appreciate you doing that. I think
Pleasure.
even though I use AI a lot, I learned some new stuff. So yeah, thank you very much for taking the time to do that. Really appreciate it. If anyone's got any questions, just shove them in the chat, and I'm sure
Yeah,
Cosmo will
absolutely.
respond.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But yeah, and Sam as well. He seems to be, both Sam Ellis and Sam Dyson, two budding experts in different fields. So yeah, yeah,
Fantastic.
absolutely.
Okay,
But,
cool.
but yeah,
Thanks.
Well,
lovely.
we'll see you tomorrow. Thank you very much. Cheers. Bye.
Lovely. Cheers, guys. Have a good day.
Bye-bye.
See you. Bye.